Hey everyone, welcome to another great episode of Smooth Business Growth Podcast, where we share 15 minutes of fast-paced, pure marketing strategies proven to move the needle in your business. So I'm your host and Captain Lyndsay Phillips. I'm the founder of Smooth Sailing Business Growth, where we help busy entrepreneurs attract and acquire customers faster through powerful and consistent content marketing. In fact, if you go to smoothbusinessgrowth.com, you can download your social media roadmap to help you do just that. So let's get to the good stuff today, because you're not here to talk about my business. We're here today chatting with the awesome Nicole Holland, who is recognized internationally as the authority on podcast guesting. And she was named in the Huffington Post as one of 50 must-follow women entrepreneurs in 2017. So naturally, we're going to dive into how to get guests ready. So let's set sail, folks. So welcome aboard, Nicole. Thanks for coming.
Oh my gosh, so fun. I'm so glad to be here, Lyndsay. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So of course, you are being an awesome guest today. And I enjoy being guests on other people's shows. And so podcast guesting is, it's getting a lot of buzz, right? It's really popular. Why do you think that is?
Oh, it's totally getting a lot of buzz. I think it's like anything, we're still in the early phases, and for people to adopt a thing, whatever that marketing thing is, whatever that fad is, it takes a little bit of time. And so now podcasting is becoming more mainstream, with all the big media outlets getting involved and having their own platforms, and all the big thought leaders that we're used to reading about, we're used to reading their books, and we're used to hearing about their big events and things. Now they're getting in on the action. We've got celebrities starting podcasts. So I think it's because it's just becoming widely accepted, and it's becoming more mainstream. And so of course people are like, whoa, if they're doing that, I need to get in on this. Yeah. And then podcast guesting, which is the act of being a featured guest expert on somebody else's podcast that already has the visibility and credibility, is like, oh my gosh, like here I am. Your audience maybe has never heard of me before. It's great that the Huffington Post acknowledges me, and Entrepreneur Magazine has named my show as one of the top 48 best podcast entrepreneurs.
Good for you.
Cool, right? Yeah, so it's really exciting. But that doesn't mean that your people have any idea who I am, but they love you. And so by being a featured guest on your show, I basically get to borrow your credibility. And so that's what's happening, and people are realizing, oh, I can be a guest. I don't even have to build up my own podcast. I can just show up and be a guest. Woo. But the problem is with that hot topic, people are doing it wrong, because they're trying to use everybody's platform to get what they want, without realizing that podcasting is very intimate, and it's an opportunity to build authentic relationships, both with hosts and with the listeners.
Absolutely. And that is so true. I think maybe their goals are sort of a little bit wrong. So as a guest going on to other people's shows, what kind of mindset should you have walking into that?
Great question. So oftentimes I actually give the guest the benefit of the doubt, because you don't know what you don't know. And we don't realize how much work goes into creating a podcast often, right? People show up and it's like, oh, this is easy. And so they don't really think about it. And when you really realize that in order to produce a podcast episode, the host has to have a website that they post it up on. They have to have hosting for the audio. They have to edit the audio. They have to create content around the audio. So it's not like they're just doing an interview with you and bam, it's done. There's investment of time and money. And I like to say that if you think about it, even if you're going on a really small show that they're just starting out and they've only cultivated, let's say, a loyal audience of 50 to 100 listeners, like loyal listeners that listen every time. First of all, the word only I use because that's what people see. It's only this, so it's not that good. I'm like, listen, dude, you are getting in a room essentially, but not even just a room. People have the opportunity to walk into any room they want, and they're putting in their ears your words. 50 real human beings. That's huge. You get to make that impact. So you're essentially, even on that one quote small show, you essentially are getting, I'd like to say, $500 worth of value out of that. So essentially the podcast host, from their production, their time, their energy, everything they're doing to build that audience, essentially you're getting minimum $500 worth of value. So you have to treat it like that. And I think a lot of times people just think about, this is an opportunity for me to get my message out, without realizing this is a gift to me to get my message out. This person is essentially my advocate by putting me on their show and introducing me to their specific audience. I think when we think about things like that, or if we think going onto a podcast is essentially being invited to a private party. And when you show up at the private party, you don't just walk in and start saying what you're all about. You walk in and you take a look and you see what's going on, and you're gracious. You might even bring a bottle of wine or a bouquet of flowers or something, but you take your shoes off if that's the expectation at the door. So when we think about it like that we are actually being extended an invitation to be somebody's guest in their home or guest on their business platform, I think we take a different we take a different approach. We go, oh, okay, now I get it. I want to treat somebody as if how I would want to be treated if the roles were reversed. And I think when people flip that switch and they think about it like that, they naturally will behave differently.
That's so true. And I love that approach. And I mean, most of my guests have been absolutely like amazing, but every now and then you get one and you're like, oh,
yeah. Like, wait, what are you doing here? Who are you? I am the captain here of this ship, dude. And I've, people talk, right. And there's different podcast, Facebook groups and stuff like that. And you kind of hear of some crazy stories. And it's like, if you frame your mind right and look at the opportunity and how you're serving people and serving the host. And I love that you say that it's like an invitation and yeah, because you would treat it differently, right? Yeah. And the thing is too, a lot of people don't realize all the ripple effects that can happen when you're a great guest. If you're just a guest, you're filling a spot and you don't wow the host as if you really appreciate them and you really genuinely want to serve them and let them drive the bus or sail the boat or whatever, if you're not there as a guest and you're there looking at their platform as just that, a platform for yourself, you're not going to be invited to other things. You're not going to be invited to other parties. But if you go in there and you genuinely show up as a gracious guest, then you will have opportunities for collaborations potentially. Yeah. The host may be a perfect client for you. The host may be a perfect provider for you. You may need what they offer on the side, because oftentimes podcasts are not the business of the right. host. They are a marketing channel or they are a passion project, but the host does other things. And so you never know what can come of that. And also,
referrals,
like you said, it's exactly. Hosts have, podcasters have a tight-knit community. And, if you do a great job and you would say, genuinely, I never, ever, ever would advocate for you just saying something you don't believe. But if you really have a great time and at the end of the interview you say, Lyndsay, this was amazing, do you know of anybody who I might be a great fit for their show too? Then the host is way more likely to then go, I do, let me introduce you to so-and-so, or maybe I don't, but I'll keep my mind open now that you bring that up. So and then you have this opportunity to continue the dialogue. So don't let it be a one-night affair. You make sure that you do keep in touch with that person, even if it's, quarterly or even biannually. Even just sending a holiday card can make a difference, and it can make people remember, oh my gosh, right. Especially when, like us, we interview so many people. I mean, I interview between all the different, I interview at least 100 people a year. So there's a lot of people to keep
That is a
track
lot
of. And I may love them, but I can't keep up with all of them. But if somebody reaches out to me every once in a while just to say hi or just to check in and see what I'm up to, that person becomes a friend over time.
Yeah, I agree. I've made some amazing friends doing this podcasting, and it's kind of like a nice surprise. You don't expect to make those real connections with someone on the other side of the world on the phone or on the computer. So, okay, you've got your mindset all ready to dive into being a guest. I know a lot of entrepreneurs are thinking, but do I have enough value? Am I ready? Do I need to sell something before I go on the show? What would you say to those people that are sort of wondering if they're ready, I guess?
I would say you're not ready. You've got to do the work. You're being positioned on a show. Now on TV, people get more intimidated on TV because you'll say, well, I could never do that because blah, blah, blah. So they have that negative self-talk. But a lot of times people think, oh, podcast isn't a big deal. I want you to think about it as a very big deal. And it doesn't matter if you have something to sell or you don't. It doesn't matter if you're new in business or you're not. If you have value to share that is legitimate and you can back it up, then get your mindset in order to clear up what that value is, and then you're ready. You don't have to hit some kind of benchmark. But if you haven't, for example, if you're not a millionaire, you don't pitch Eventual Millionaire. Like, it's just not the right show for you. So you have to find the right shows for where you're at in your life and where you're at in your business or where you're at in your journey. I mean, think about the news. Think about if you're watching a morning show, how many people are on there that are not business owners that are just sharing value because they have an interest in something and they know something that could be of interest to other people that are watching. Think about it like that. So if you're a gardener and you haven't really started your business yet, but you're thinking, I'd like to have a business, or I would love to create courses online for that passive income. And I know I've got to create content and I got to do all this, which Lyndsay, you're so amazing at sharing all of those different ways to get that off the ground. But a podcast would be great if it's a gardening show because you're an expert in gardening, even if you're not you haven't made money yet doing it. Does that make sense?
That makes total sense. And I like that approach. And I mean, obviously it's all about serving. Now, what are some good ways to be a great guest, but then also, make sure that you do leverage the interview to showcase your expertise and possibly bring more leads in? I mean, there is a fine line. So what are some success tips for some guests out there?
For sure. So first and foremost is all mindset. And I don't want you going on a show to sell. Never go on a show to sell. Right. The only time you would go on a show to sell is if you're going on a show that's about going on a show to sell. Like, for example, my friend Michael Neely has a show called Buy This, Not That. It is about the product. It's about what you're selling. That's the kind of show you go on to talk about your product and what you sell. But on other shows, you go on as a featured expert. So do not try and sell, but yes, you want to give people a next step to take action with you. So for example, here I'm talking about how to be a great guest, but we have only 15 minutes. I can talk for days about this. And so I have a podcast called Get Guest Ready, where from there I have lots more resources. So my invitation for listeners is if you want more, at the end we'll tell you the link to go and get more from me so you can learn at a deeper level if I resonate with you. That's the kind of thing you want to do. You want to give relevant value. And this is a problem that I see a lot of people, or mistake I see a lot of people making in podcast guesting, is they go on with the intention of, I'm going to give away this. This is my lead magnet. And so they have that one thing. But the conversation they have with the host can be completely something off topic. And so when we give an invitation to get 2 free chapters of our book or whatever it is, whatever that lead magnet we've decided on is, and it's not connected to the conversation, it's very hard to convert listeners to leads.
That is so true. And I see that a lot. I mean, it has to be, again, you're serving, giving all the great information. And then, if you want more, you're inviting, and again, I love how you use that word, you're inviting someone to get more free resources and, invite you to check something out that relates to the topic.
And it also so it has to be a value, but also like another mistake I see is people want to give something that they think is a great value. So for example, you can get my book for free by going here and signing up, but you haven't yet created that connection to where people would see the value of getting your book for free, because we have information. We don't need more digital books. And also the goal should not be to get content to them. The goal should be to give them value that they're going to consume right away. So if you have a book on something, it might be a better step in that direction to invite them to get one nugget of wisdom that you put together from your book. I recommend to my clients, rather than having, it's great to have an assortment of lead magnets, but if you have a really killer interview and you don't have a lead magnet for that, that's awesome, because you just check, when is this going out? You make sure you've got the time. And as soon as you're done with the interview, you can record a video yourself speaking to that listener of that show and saying, I really enjoyed this conversation. One of the things that we didn't get to talk about was this. And so I'm going to do this quick training just for listeners of XYZ podcast. And so when you offer that, you say in the interview, I would love to support your listeners with this thing we didn't cover. So as soon as we're done, just be really transparent. As soon as we're done, I'm going to actually record a special video training just for your listeners. So if they go to myurl.com/a special code, whatever that podcast is, they can actually download that. And it's not even made yet. So again, be really transparent, be really honest. People love that, because now they feel like, oh my gosh, she's going to create something beyond, right, just for me that's never been shared before. Nice. Wow, I have to get it.
I love that tip.
Thank you.
That is a great one. Because I've rarely seen that done, and that's a really great trick. I love that. Yeah,
it's about connecting, because again, if you're coming into podcast guesting as a means to sell, you're coming in again with the wrong. And we all have been to those events where people are there to shove their card in your face and get as many of their cards out as they can. Don't care about you. Don't have any interest in what you're interested in, and those cards do not get used. The only people who take those cards and do something about it are people who are just as desperate and just as confused. So if you want to actually connect with people, you have to connect with them where they're at. And when you share your value, then by letting them know how you can share more of your value in a way that they want right now will inspire them to take action. And that starts the relationship. And that can turn into, I just had a client the other day tell me that they just closed a multi-billion-dollar company on a very, very, very large contract that heard her on a podcast interview. Nice. So you never know. Right. So you never know what can come of it. And it can also happen later on. A lot of people I see going into podcast guesting, they think of quick fix. Oh, I'm going to do this and then I'm going to get this flood of leads. It doesn't work like that. No. You're starting a relationship.
Yeah. I love that. Such great feedback. So I know you have more info to share, and yes, we could easily talk about this topic for way longer. But how can you get people guest ready, Nicole?
Yeah. So you mean about the next step? Yeah. So if you go to interviewsthatconvert.com/podcast, it's going to take you to my podcast called Get Guest Ready. And in that, I share even more tips right from how to even figure out which shows you should be on. Nice. Don't make the assumption that just because you're in marketing and something's a marketing show that you're a right fit. I get probably 10 pitches for every opening I have, and like 99% of them are totally not a right fit for my show. Probably 99.9. But when you know what your right show is, it's easy to find them. And then you focus on quality over quantity all the time. And so I literally walk people through how to do that, and then through the interview and how to follow up as well. Again,
perfect.
So it's interviews.convert.com/podcast.
Perfect. And obviously we'll have those links for everyone in the show notes, and links to your podcast and all that good stuff, so they can find out how awesome you really are.
Thank you. It takes one to know one.
Us Canadian girls rock.
Yeah.
So those 15 minutes go by fast. So that is your 15-minute cruise to move the needle in your business this week. It's come to an end already. And of course, thank you so much, Nicole, for giving us some great insight on how to be a great podcast guest.
It's my pleasure, Lyndsay. Thank you. And thank you to everybody who's listened, and let me know. I would love to hear from you if this resonated.
Perfect. So folks, if you're looking to achieve faster growth through blogs, videos, and of course, podcasting, look no further than smoothbusinessgrowth.com. Have a profitable and productive week, and may the winds always be at your back.